This is Mark Bayer, the movie guy. February may be the shortest month of the year, but it's loaded with events of tremendous cultural significance. The two biggest ones, of course, being the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards. Now, despite the fact that everybody complains that the Super Bowl starts too late, runs too long, and causes everybody to oversleep and be late for work, other than forcing halftime entertainers to keep all their clothes on, no major changes have occurred in the Super Bowl over the last several years, and lockouts notwithstanding, none will in the foreseeable future. Why? Because the Super Bowl gets tremendous ratings. Millions and millions and millions of people, including non-football fans like me, not only watch it, but plan their lives around it year after year. The Oscars don't have the same luxury. They're still popular, but they've been hemorrhaging viewers. Why? Well, as a friend of mine put it, they keep nominating artsy-fartsy films for Best Picture rather than movies that people actually go and see. The breaking point might have been in 2008, when the tremendously popular and critically acclaimed Batman movie, The Dark Knight, was passed over in favor of the pretentious Nazi stooges Need Love Too, especially if they're illiterate, twaddle the player. Last year, the Academy attempted to remedy it by widening the net to include 10 Best Picture nominees instead of 5, so that the big popular hits had a better chance of competing with the art house favorites. Imagine the irony when the first year they tried this, one of those art house films, the bleak, uncompromising Iraq war drama, The Hurt Locker, completely trounced the biggest box office hit of all time, Avatar, for the top honor. But they're trying it again this year. The top 10 nominees are a blend of popular favorites and specialty attractions, with a few of them straddling or blending the two. No matter what happens, February 27th's Oscar ceremony will contain enough drama to merit a movie in and of itself. What I'll be doing now is discussing in an admittedly biased way the 10 nominees and their chances of winning or losing. The most obscure of the nominees is Winter's Bone, a stark suspense melodrama about a backwoods girl, played by Jennifer Lawrence, who faces life or death challenges that nobody should have to, especially someone her age, in order to keep home and family intact. It's grim, it's suspenseful, it's involving, it's tremendously atmospheric, it's terrifically acted. Jennifer Lawrence and John Hawkes received deserving nominations, and it has about as much chance of winning Best Picture as I have of running in the 2012 Olympics. What some people might ask is, a movie with this kind of specialized appeal, instead of nominating it, why didn't they nominate Blue Valentine or Another Year? Those at least got some other nominations, and as good as Winter's Bone is, those are equally so or even better. Winter's Bone has absolutely no chance. Then there's 127 Hours. It's a combination of a survival adventure and a character study involving Aaron Ralston, a real-life figure, who one morning went hiking without telling anyone or taking his cell phone and gets trapped between a rock and a hard place, the title of Ralston's book. He learns some very painful but necessary life lessons about himself. Unfortunately, for most people who haven't seen the movie, it's better known as the one about the guy who cuts his arm off with his own pocket knife. And truth be told, I'm not a big fan of gore. I would have more than gladly assumed, as everyone else did, that James Franco is great in the role and just given the movie a pass before the nominations came out. And in fact, that particular scene is done with relative restraint, and it's over quickly, but there's no law that says that the Academy voters have to actually see all the movies. And I strongly suspect that the older and or more squeamish ones will give it a pass. 127 hours has no chance whatsoever. Speaking of which, a few years ago, certain Academy members, including Ernest Borgnine and the late Tony Curtis, loudly declared that they would absolutely not see Brokeback Mountain. That's probably one of the factors that caused it to lose Best Picture. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to stop the really enjoyable, engaging, perceptive comedy drama that kids are all right, but something will. It tells the story of a lesbian couple played by Annette Bening and Julianne Moore, whose mostly happy, long-term relationship is challenged when their daughter researches her biological father and invites him to visit. Director Lisa Cholodenko convincingly shows us that gay couples and their relationships have as many issues and dynamics as those of straight couples, but not all voters are going to see her through to its logical conclusion because of some seeming loose ends. They're completely wrong, of course, but that's me. I'm not among the Academy voters. One of the biggest box office behemoths of 2010 was Christopher Nolan's Inception, a series of Chinese boxes or Russian nesting dolls, your pick, about a secret agent whose job is to infiltrate other people's dreams and whose latest assignment might strike a little bit close to home. Now, I'm a big fan of some of Nolan's earlier work, especially Memento, a crime drama that tells its story backwards, but that one did so in less than 2 hours. Inception, like Nolan's The Dark Knight, which I previously mentioned, goes on and forever and ever, way past the point of caring. Now, obviously, I'm in the minority here, but I have no doubt that some Academy members will feel the same way. So as a result, if Inception's dreams include winning a few technical awards, they'll come true. But winning Best Picture, dream on. Now we come to 2003's biggest box office hit, Toy Story 3. Now what's not to love? It completes the beloved trilogy in a funny, thrilling, and completely satisfying manner, and that final scene flooded almost as many theaters as Hurricane Katrina did. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Woody and Buzz will take home the Best Animated Film Oscar, and in fact, 2010 was such a great year for animated films that if Toy Story 3, How to Train Your Dragon, The Illusionist, Despicable Me, and Tangled made up half the list of Best Picture nominees, you wouldn't get much of an argument from me. But the sad truth is, cartoons don't win Best Picture. Enough said. Now we come to the only 5 nominees that really have a realistic shot. The 5 whose directors are also nominated. The most flamboyantly directed, some might say over-directed, film in this bunch is Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, a hyperkinetic horror melodrama about an emotionally fragile, deeply vulnerable young woman who's casting in the lead role in a major ballet with all the baggage that comes with it could lead to her destruction. It's intensely watchable, but what it boils down to is 2 hours that are about as painful to sit through as that scene in 127 hours. Natalie Portman, however, deserves all the credit in the world. She spends everything she's got and more in that role, and she brings so much sympathy to that character that on Oscar night, Black Swan will generate a Best Actress Oscar and nothing else. David O. Russell's The Fighter plays much better when you're watching in a theater than it does after you leave. It tells the true story of a boxer, played by Mark Wahlberg, whose climb to the top is aided by his tough but loyal girlfriend, but impeded by his domineering mom and his drug-addicted brother. The atmosphere is terrific, and so is the acting. Christian Bale and Melissa Leo will almost surely win supporting Oscars. Unfortunately, Amy Adams as the girlfriend won't. But once you've walked out of the theater, you realize that you've seen this story told many times before in many different ways, and I'm sure the Academy will realize the same truth. Besides, there's a much better sports movie among the nominees, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Joel and Ethan Coen's take on Charles Portis's acclaimed Western novel, True Grit, for many people overshadowed the classic 1969 movie version, even with John Wayne's iconic Oscar-winning portrayal of Rooster Cogburn, a drunken sheriff who helps a naive adolescent girl track down her father's killer. Keep in mind, however, that only twice in the 80-plus year history of the Academy has a remake won top honors. Once in 1959 with Ben-Hur, which was a big, elaborate do-over of a 1922 silent film, and once in 2006 with Martin Scorsese's The Departed, which was an Americanization of a Japanese crime film entitled Infernal Affairs. Now, True Grit is not strictly a remake per se. The Coens are far more faithful to Portis's novel than the earlier version was, but in the eyes of at least some voters, the John Wayne version will still stand supreme, and I completely agree with them. True Grit continues the oppressive spiral of bleakness that has defined all of the Coens' work since and including No Country for Old Men. Now we come to the big showdown. Up until a few weeks ago, The Social Network, with all its 4-star ratings and placements on critics' top 10 lists at the top, seemed to be the movie to beat. Now it appears that the movie has already been beaten. It tells the story of Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's inventor or thief, depending upon your point of view. The problem with it is that it has nobody to root for or even like. And what's ironic is that the very clever, quotable script is by Aaron Sorkin, and this is not characteristically the way he works. The genius behind A Few Good Men, The American President, and the TV series The West Wing normally excels at writing characters who are not only witty but heroic. And that is precisely what will place The Social Network in the runner-up position. It has no heroes. The almost surefire winner for Best Picture on February 27th has heroes in abundance. It's Tom Hooper's wonderful The King's Speech. This is the non-athletic sports movie I was referring to earlier. Like many great sports films, it features an underdog, the reluctant King of England, Albert aka George, who faces insurmountable odds, his stammering, with the help of his wife and a great coach, his speech therapist, to play in the big game. In other words, give a series of radio speeches that will encourage and embolden England to stand in the face of Nazi encroachment. Furthermore, it's produced by those notorious spoilers, the Weinstein brothers, Harvey and Bob, who in 1998 somehow convinced the majority of the Academy that Shakespeare in Love was a better movie than Saving Private Ryan. And in 2008, they were the ones who weaseled The Reader into the top 5, which, as I mentioned before, partially caused the changeover in the lineup to begin with. To continue the football analogy, The Social Network is a little bit like the Arizona Cardinals. In the 2009 championship, it seemed like they had it in the bag, but in the final seconds, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Weinsteins, and The King's Speech completely snatched victory. However, even without the Weinsteins' incredible promotional skills, The King's Speech will win very simply because while The Social Network is an easy picture to admire, The King's Speech is a very easy movie to love. This This is Mark Thayer. Let's go to the movies.